Today we're going to talk about how to travel, the best way to travel, get there cheap, get there safe, get there without your brain exploding. After 40 years of traveling for business and leisure, some of my advice.
Your flight on flying to the Philippines is now boarding. Please ask the passenger next to you if he paid more for his tickets than you did. Please have a safe flight. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're ready for takeoff.
What advice would I give travelers flying to the Philippines, getting ready for a long haul flight? Go to a local bank and exchange 50 or 100 US dollars for Philippine currency. You won't get the best exchange rate, but what a luxury to walk off the plane and have 80, 90 US dollars equivalent in your wallet. Secondly, nowadays get an eSIM card. There's a company called Airlo, and you can get an eSIM card really cheap, and when you land, those wheels touch down, you turn on your cell phone, you're going to have service. So if you want to call it Grab, which is the Uber equivalent, it'll work. Get a Google Voice number, get a debit card that doesn't have international transaction fees. Always use a real ATM that's like Bank of Philippines, Bank of Thailand, not a convenience ATM, which is a service industry ATM. You will get charged a lot of money. Always accept the local conversion. Always pay in pesos. You'll get the best rate. Accept the local conversion at the ATM. Money exchanges, they're only when you're stuck with currency and you're leaving the country. If you got way more Philippine pesos than you need and you're never coming back, yeah, use the exchange at the airport. But do not. There will be ATMs. You'll see these exchange houses when you first get off the plane. Do not use them. Go outside and use the ATM. A second debit card, which I highly recommend. So you lock up your passport, lock up one debit card, and now you can use a debit card and get the best transaction, best currency transaction, and then you get if I use like a Schwab card, you'll get 3 times a month, you'll get your debit ATM fees refunded. You don't want to be buying cheeseburgers and paying service fees. So that's the low-hanging fruit tips. I started traveling my first job out of college. I had a sales territory. I covered 23 states east of the Mississippi. I've been to 46 US states and approximately 60 countries, 57 of them in the last 5 years. Advice on finding the best deals and flights. Well, in the old days, they used to call it Scott's Discount Airfare. Now it's called Going. So I always have a subscription to Going. It's a little bit of a nuisance. You get 1 or 2 emails a day, and you put in the airports you want to fly to, and you can put an alert, and if there is a mistake or if there is a sale, you'll get notified. So that, as a minimum, I would do that. Secondly, you can go into Google Flights and you can create a watch for a particular flight, a particular route, and when those fares come down, you can do that. And also within Google Flights, don't just look at a particular day. I always fly on Wednesdays typically. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday flights are cheaper. I never purchase my flight on a Friday afternoon or on a Saturday. I find that to be more expensive. International flights I buy typically 8 weeks to 12 weeks ahead of time. In the Philippines, you want to buy that domestic flight really like 7 weeks ahead of time. Flights can be really cheap, especially if you don't have luggage and you don't choose a seat, but they can double or triple as you get within a couple of weeks of your destination. Within Google, look at the graph. There's a chart. You can look at a chart, and let's say you want to go to the Philippines for 17 days, you want to go for 21 days. You can look on the chart and you can go back and forth in time and see what the cheapest 21-day flight will be on any given day. But just because you're looking on a Sunday morning and it's going to cost $1,400, $1,500 doesn't mean you should buy that flight. You should come back on a Monday night at your local time at 10 p.m. or come back midweek. And then what I found is, like, for people traveling to Europe and things like that, you have to wait till like August 15th before the fares drop. Like, I was always a shoulder season traveler. The Philippines, you want to avoid Chinese New Year, you want to avoid the holidays, but there is no real shoulder season any time of year other than those, or you're going to get good fares. But if you have to go through Asia anytime around Chinese New Year, watch out. And anytime around Christmas, they're just going to take advantage of you. My top 3 tips for long haul flights. Well, this is really something I think I can help with. Number 1, meditation before long flights is very, very valuable. You can read up a little bit on how to meditate. The most important thing is when you get this thought in your head, you want to let it go. And when there is somebody kicking the seat behind you and there's somebody loud talking next to you, if you have learned a little bit of meditation skill, you can make it through a really long flight. You can make it through a 10-hour delay. You clear your mind, you let it go. And my number one tip for long haul flights is to learn a little bit of meditation skills. Now nowadays, United just announced nonstop service from Los Angeles. Filipino Airlines also has nonstop service. If you can take a nonstop flight, fantastic. Pay a little bit of extra. I would do it. However, the second tip, my last trip to the Philippines, I came from Belgium. And from Belgium, I flew to Abu Dhabi and I had an 8-hour or 7-hour layover. They have in the terminal hotel, it cost me about $75. And boy, you get to lie down, you get to take a shower, and it's like 15, or maybe it's like 5-minute walk to your gate. And 5-minute walk from the gate you got off. And you can make a choice. You could pay $3,000 because, hey, you're 60-something years old and you worked hard and you're going to treat yourself to a business class flight where you get to sort of lay down. Or you could book coach, fly like I did, 7 hours to Abu Dhabi, spend $85 for 6 or 7 hours in a nice bed with a nice shower. And boy, when you wake up and you get a chance in the middle of one of these long flights to get that bed. Now I had 8 hours to Manila. I got off that plane in Manila. I felt really amazing. So that's a really good hack and tip, is book a connecting flight in coach where they have an either in airport terminal that's not ridiculously expensive hotel, or you can just walk across the street, and sometimes there'll be an expensive 4 or 5-star hotel. You can just walk across the terminal. But when you compare it to a business class flight and the wear and tear on your body, that is really, so that's tip number 2. And tip number 3, eat early. Eat your bigger meal for breakfast. Try not to eat much in the middle of the flight, and try not to eat that last meal they offer you. And then when you arrive, eat a bigger breakfast the first 3 days in your new time zone, and skip or eat a very light dinner. And just as an aside, I'm in my 60s, and it used to be that I would be in the car sometimes driving to California, and after 2 hours or 3 hours, boy, I would get out of the car like an old man and like a cripple. My hips, everything would be all like arthritic. And now I don't eat many grains and I don't eat sugar. So I limit the corn, wheat, rice, all grains, all vegetable oil. I can get out of a 6 or 7 hour car ride. I just spring right out. And so before, maybe you don't want to change your diet too dramatically, but the week before you travel, about 6 or 5 days before you travel, eliminate all inflammatory foods. Eliminate all corn, all wheat, all rice, all flour, all sugar. Eat a really clean diet. Boy, you can sit in that airplane seat and you will not have that backache. You can walk across the sky bridge up on the 3rd, 4th floor, and you will find yourself on Newport Boulevard, and there are many condos listed as hotels, and they run between 40 and 50 bucks a night, or you can go right into the Savoy or Belmont Hotel for about $100 US a night. Cebu versus Manila. I've flown into both. I much prefer Manila because I like walking across that sky bridge my first night in town, or I like going into Makati or BGC. It's only 10 to 20 minutes taxi depending on traffic, time of day. You can get a moderately priced condo at maybe $80, $75 a night in Makati or BGC. It's not bad to spend the first few nights in Makati. However, if you want to move on, I don't recommend going and taking your next flight or having a connecting flight in case you're delayed. So I would spend one night in Manila across the street on Newport Boulevard. I wouldn't go to Cebu City. To be honest with you, I just don't like Cebu City. I've been there 2 or 3 times. The traffic to get from the airport, to get from Lapu-Lapu into Cebu City proper, it's just a nightmare. and you're in the taxi for an hour and it ends up costing like $12 or $14, which in the Philippines is a really expensive taxi ride. If I'm going into Bangkok, it doesn't really matter if I go into DMG or BKK. Right around Sukhumvit, I'm probably going to get a room at the Red Planet, or I'm going to get a room within a quarter mile of Terminal 21 in the Sukhumvit area. I'm going to spend 2 nights in Bangkok at the most, and I'm going to head to Pattaya by taxi. You can get a bus from the terminal. You can do it really cheap, but I usually just take a taxi, about $40 US. In terms of Vietnam, you know, the Da Nang area is a great place to go for beaches. I really enjoyed Ha Long Bay. Years ago I saw YouTube, it said 25 things to do before you die, and Ha Long Bay was #1. And I had a great time. You know, now they're building an airport. It might be open soon, but you have to take a 4-hour bus ride from Hanoi. Hanoi was very interesting too. So Vietnam is a great place to stop. If it's your first time as an expat coming to Asia, you might want to go to Bangkok, Pattaya, back to Bangkok, fly to Manila. If you know where you're going and you want to go to the Visayas, you can come into Cebu City and stay in Mactown, Newtown, which is about 15 minutes from the airport in Lapu-Lapu, and avoid going downtown. You know, in Cebu City itself, they've got a couple of nice malls and some coffee culture and some IT parks, but just the amount of people on the sidewalks, the traffic, I just don't understand why it's a big attraction, other than there's a tremendous amount of call centers and there's a lot of English-speaking girls in Cebu City. So a lot of people meet girls online that are from the Cebu City area. But in Cebu City, you can take a ferry and go to Dumaguete, you can take a ferry to Bohol, you can take a ferry to Surigao. So there's lots of advantages. The thing that I think most people don't know about that I've learned over my years of travel, the Google Explore tab, if you reverse engineer it and you don't just use it for your hometown, they have a tab called Explore. And I think most people have found that tab and they know how to use it. But there's a way to use it I've found which is really unique and opens up a lot of opportunities. Normally you're going to put your home airport in there. Another way to do it is to figure out the cheapest flight from the Philippines to another destination. So for example, if you put Manila in the Explore tab for any time in the next month or any time in the next 6 months, you'll see the cheapest one-way flight out of Manila. Now you're coming to the Philippines, but you're searching for ways to leave. Now typically it's Singapore or Hong Kong, and you may see a discount flight for $30 to Singapore. Now, instead of just looking for flights from your home city to Manila or to Cebu City or to Bangkok, now you can look for the cheapest flight maybe to Hong Kong from LA, which they have very competitive flights to Hong Kong from LA. A good example, if you just want to try this at home, on the island of Crete, there are 2 airports, Larnaca and Paphos, P-A-P-H-O-S. Type in Paphos and look at the cheapest flight you can take within the next 6 months. And you're going to usually find Ryanair, the discount carrier, will fly to Damascus for about $28. So if you're going to take an itinerary and you have 5 or 6 cities, maybe there's one city in particular is the place you really want to see, go ahead and put that city in the Explore tab and see the cheapest flight out of town from that city. And then you can work your route to that city sometimes by connecting to, because if it's the cheapest flight out of that city, there'll be a cheap flight into that city too. One of the things that I really learned the hard way is you don't want to schedule an airplane ride that lands in the mid to late afternoon when thunderstorms are likely to create havoc at the airport that you're landing. And you don't want to really take off that time of day too. For example, Dallas, Texas, never schedule a 4 to 6 o'clock arrival, a 3 to 7 o'clock departure. You're much more likely to depart during bad weather than you are to land. Transportation within the Philippines is really very, very simple. They have Grab here, but to be honest with you, I don't use it much. It's not as, it can be quite difficult to get a Grab. When it is easy to get a Grab, I'll usually use a Grab because you don't have to explain where you're going. However, the taxis here are cheap as long as they're using the meter, it is a cheap way to go, and that's how I do it. I don't use, services. I don't arrange vans. I don't do any of that nonsense. I just use taxis in the Philippines. Now, in certain cities like Dumaguete, they have trikes. They're really cheap. And then also, a lot of times you can have flight delays because of weather. So taking ferries between cities, they have fast catamarans between Dumaguete and Bohol, Tagbilaran. They have overnight ferries between Tagbilaran and Cagayan de Oro. It's only like $30 per person. It's a suite with 4 bunk beds. You get in very early the next morning. You save a little bit of money that way. You can move around by ferry. You can take your rental car. If you have a car, you can just put that car in the ferry and save a lot of money when you're at your next destination. So ferries are something you really want to look into. Now, one little secret, everybody should go to El Nido, and there is an airline called AirSwift that flies directly to El Nido, and you can fly from El Nido to Boracay. It's going to cost you an extra $100, but flying to Puerto Princesa and taking that 6-hour van ride, I'm just not in favor of that. You kind of burn a whole day of travel on your schedule doing that. I would get myself to El Nido, pay the extra $100 on AirSwift, fly from El Nido directly to Boracay, Cataclan Airport. You have to take a ferry across. Use my Boracay guide to get you picked up at the airport and delivered right to Boracay. It's an extra $10 or $15 than trying to navigate it yourself, but what a great service. So that's one of my tips. And then if you're taking any kind of a bus or public transportation, Google might say it takes 4 hours, but boy, they stop everywhere, and they have inspections to make sure the drivers actually collect the money, and have to be quality control. It can take you forever. I use WhatsApp and I use Messenger. My family and friends back home, I ask them to make sure they have WhatsApp on their phone. I prefer WhatsApp. But I use Messenger sometimes. Some people use Messenger, so I just use Messenger with them. A lot of the local people here in the Philippines will use Messenger. Managing travel expenses, I'm probably not the best one to ask. I use an app called Tripet to organize my travel. I love it. There's a free version. It's not a paid advertisement, but it will read your emails. And every time you get a confirmation code, every time you get a reservation, airplane, hotel, ferry, it automatically imports that reservation data into the app, and then automatically you've got an itinerary all labeled out. And then every time you want to know, what hotel did I stay at, what airline, what terminal was I in, it's all there. All your past trips are there. It calculates your how green you are, how many miles you traveled, how many cities you went to. It's really neat. It's called TRIPIT, and it's free. And then there's a pro version, but the free version is like not full of much advertising. I've used it for 6-7 years. In terms of packing, I use a crossbody bag and a carry-on normally. I do like to check my luggage. For years and years and years, I just never checked my luggage. And most people like me who've been like real road warriors, they'll never check their luggage. I usually check my carry-on bag, and I bring my overbody bag, which is actually made in the Philippines. Is a great bag. You have to go through immigration anyway at these airports. Walking off with your hand carry is not going to save you much time. I mean, I got off a plane in Portugal at 6 a.m. I was in immigration for 2 hours. The one thing I will tell you is go to the bathroom 45 minutes or an hour before the flight lands. Do not stop to go to the bathroom when you get off a long haul flight, because if you lose, if there's 300 people on that airplane and you stop to go to the bathroom or make a phone call, 100 people might slip ahead of you. Let's say you're sitting in the middle of the plane, and but I walk fast and I make a beeline right for immigration, and there's no stopping for the bathroom. And otherwise, like 100 people in line ahead of you at some immigration counters, that can cost you a half hour, 45 minutes. So that's a good tip. I was just in Puerto Montt, Patagonia. I planned to go rent a car and see a volcano, and I got reined in. I actually met Chrissy that day because I was in the hotel. I had extra time, so it turned out to be quite fortunate. However, the following morning I almost got mugged, or I witnessed a mugging or an attempted carjacking. I'm not sure. It was like a scene from Train to Busan. Lasted like 7 to 10 seconds. That was the scariest moment of all my travels. I've seen quite a few humorous things, but the scariest thing, this is 35, 40 years ago. I was taking a flight from Washington, D.C. to Houston, Texas. There was a 3-year-old girl in the seat in front of me, and she stood up on her seat, faced me, and cried at the top of her lungs for all 3 hours. There was snot coming out of her nose. The mother was sitting right next to her and did nothing. So I recommend some noise canceling headphones. I recommend you learn how to meditate. I travel with regular industrial kind of noise earplugs. I travel with wax earplugs, the kind swimmers would use, and I travel with Apple iPhone Pro headphones, noise cancellation. But to be honest with you, when someone's kicking the back of your seat and screaming in your face, or there's a really loud person next to you, it's not going to work. Safety tips in the Philippines, everywhere I've been in the world, I just say the same thing. Don't go out drinking and stumble out of the bar and try and weave your way back to your hotel or go down any side streets. Take a taxi from point A to point B. If it's late at night, you can get a grab. It's even better because and have them drop you right in front of your hotel or condo or Airbnb. Do not walk down streets at night is my advice. There are young men who are disadvantaged. It wouldn't take much for them to pull up and put a screwdriver in your stomach. You don't know it's a screwdriver, and they want your cell phone. They want your wallet. So that's the thing to watch out for. In terms of other safety things, I haven't had Delhi Belly or Montezuma's Revenge since I've been in the Philippines. I've been trying to be careful. The most underrated destination in the Philippines that I would recommend is the Bukidnon Mountains. We live here in Cagayan de Oro, and about a 2-hour drive from where I'm sitting. You have these spectacular mountains. Everybody goes to Baguio for cooler weather. But they have an area here, it's called Little New Zealand. We did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Chrissy and Cha-Cha, and here's a picture of the gorgeous scenery. The temperature was about 70 Fahrenheit, maybe 20 Celsius. It looked like New Zealand. It was beautiful weather, really rugged. That's really a very underrated place. They had a theme park up there where you could do zip lining, and they also had a nice coffee restaurant. Pick your seat wisely. Look for obvious families. When you see 3 rows across taken, it's a family. When you see 4 seats across taken, it's a family. Don't sit too close to the bathroom. Don't sit too close to the bulkhead where the stewardesses are talking the whole flight. Use Seat Guru. 24 hours before your flight, when they release seats, see if you can adjust or improve your seat selection. Always look out for small children based on where the empty seats are. Sometimes you can get a whole row that's empty if you change 24 hours before. If you're small enough, you can lay down and kind of take advantage of that on a long haul flight. Take advantage of these in-airport hotels. Sometimes it's just worth paying extra to walk across the street to a more expensive hotel. Use trains and subways to get to and from airports. That is in Europe in particular, and some places in Asia. Some airports like Hong Kong and Singapore, you can relax. You can get through immigration fast, and you can know that you can get through. If you change planes in Seoul, they have these day trips. You'll see these 12 and 14-hour layovers and go, ugh, I don't want to do that. But they have these excursions into town that are designed for long layovers. So if you've never been to South Korea, you don't want to stop there and pay for hotel rooms. You can go through South Korea and look for these 12 and 14-hour layovers. You'll get a 9-hour excursion into Seoul, and you'll get to feel like you really got to see South Korea on your way to the Philippines. So that's something to do. The Singapore airport is crazy. One of the secrets there is they have cheap flights there. The minute you get off the plane, everything's expensive, but they have these pod hotels that are just half a mile from the Marina Bay Hotel, the famous hotel that's $300 a night. You can get a pod hotel for like $25 a night. You can get an executive pod hotel for an extra $8 or $9 a night. The bathrooms are clean. The taxi over to the Marina Hotel or to the entertainment is cheap. They've got a Chinatown. So you can get in and out of Singapore for not too much money, or you can stay at a discount 3.5-star hotel near Chinatown. That's not too bad. But stay right near a metro line. Having your hotel above a metro station within a short walk to a metro station, with public transportation conveniently located. When a country has good infrastructure, that's the way to go. In the Philippines, you just want to make sure you don't get caught in Cebu City traffic, in Manila traffic. That is the worst. It's polluted, it's loud, people are begging, and it's not pretty, and it's a waste of your travel time and enjoyment. So walk across that sky bridge, fly into Manila, go into Makati, and enjoy yourself. Don't be a cheap Charlie in those instances where it's going to be a lot of wear and tear on your body. In terms of destinations and where to go, the only place I haven't really gone to is Baguio, and we have the Bukidnon Mountains here. We can get out of the weather, we can enjoy mountains. I think it's quite similar, but I do hope to go there. The itinerary I recommend is Manila. From Manila, you want to go to Coron. From Coron, you want to take the ferry to El Nido. From El Nido, you want to fly on AirSwift directly to Boracay. Contact my Boracay guide, have them meet you at the airport, whisk you through the ferry and all the hassle to get onto Boracay. Spend 5 nights on the bay. Don't pay big money to be on the ocean. It's only a 7-minute walk across the island, and it's so simple. You can take electric tuk-tuks too. You'll get a view of the bay. You're going to be in air conditioning anyway, and it's cheap, and boy, it's so nice on Boracay. From Boracay, I would fly to Dumaguete. I would just bypass Cebu City. You know, if you need to see Cebu City, sure, spend a day or two there. Get a condo above Ayala Mall or right next door, Quest Hotel, something like that. From Cebu City, you're going to go to you're going to go to Dumaguete, see what all the fuss is about. Why all the, I took a tuk-tuk. I went up to look at the Valencia to see if it was a place I'd want to live. From Dumaguete, they have fast catamarans that are going to take you to Tagbilaran, Bohol, or Siquijor, and is an hour. Tagbilaran's 2 hours, and you're going to take a 40-minute taxi to Panglao and enjoy Alana Beach. From Tagbilaran, you can get the overnight Asia ferry for $30 per person. You can get a semi-private cabin with a bunk bed. You'll wake up at 7 a.m. the next morning. From there, you can drive an hour south and see the city of waterfalls, Iligan, or you can visit uptown where I live and see why I like it and see how you can get some elevation and some breeze. You could continue on the island of Mindanao to take a quick flight to Davao, and you could go to the place in Mindanao that is famous for surfing, Surigao. EGC is a really first world place to stay. They got gorgeous condos, malls, if that's what you're into. Makati, I think, is the best landing place for 2 or 3 days. If you're not a penny pincher, Makati's great. The food's good. Food is half the price of your hometown. If you live in a big city, food is a third of the price. You can get a bottle of tequila at a store here in Cagayan de Oro for $2.09. So the alcohol can be very cheap. Don't bring any bad habits with you. I was inspired by YouTube. I was inspired by watching YouTube travel vloggers. When I retired, I decided to virtually travel the world, like Albania, and I would find travel vloggers who would go to every country around the world. I found a number of guys who had actually been to every country. Before I would go to a destination, I would do things like take books on tape about Egyptology, or I would watch travel vloggers who were going to Cairo. And that's a great example. I just got back from Egypt last year, and boy, 90% of people take a tour and they just pay through the nose because they're so worried about security in Egypt. And I found Egypt to be a very friendly place to travel. I booked everything myself, flew to Aswan, got on a 3-day Nile River cruise. It was amazing. Luxor was insane. There was a $50 a night Steigenberger hotel on the Nile. One of the nicest 5-star rooms I ever had. It was probably $47 a night, included breakfast. Oh my God, I would have stayed there a week if I had known I could get such a good value. I wasn't in a big hurry. Egypt was really a truly amazing destination. People ask me, like, if you could go anywhere, one place, what would it be? And I always tell them, I would spend 5 to 7 days in Egypt. Fly me to the Philippines. Tips, tricks, and hacks. Thanks for watching today. Until next time.